Hey guys, welcome back to The Mind of Brandon, and welcome back to another Walking Deadness Day. Spoiler alert, by the way, for those who are not caught up with The Walking Dead as of Season 7, Episode 16, titled The First Day of the Rest of Your Life. If you don't want me to spoil anything that's happened up till now in the show, or even in the comics, then you probably shouldn't watch this video. That being said, when I first started doing Walking Dead videos, I actually had not read any of the comics yet. I'd seen, parts of it from, other videos that people posted on YouTube. I knew about some of the stuff that happened in the comics. But, yeah, I hadn't actually, sat down and read an actual Walking Dead comic. However, recently, just this past February, I had my 33rd birthday, and one of the presents I got was the first compendium of The Walking Dead. Pretty thick, right? It's issues 1 through 48. But I breezed through it pretty freaking fast. Was done with it. Just a few days later, went online and ordered the second compendium, right? Issues 49 through 96, right? Then I got through that, and I went online and ordered the third compendium, right? I got a little bookmark there. I'm halfway through it, right? So that's where I'm at. So yeah, basically I have now caught up with where the show is at. In the comics, I'm caught up with where the show is at. I think that's the right way of wording that. But anyway, so yeah, when I watched the season finale of season 7. It was interesting, being in this situation where it's hey, I already read this in a comic. And, usually that hasn't been the case when I'm watching The Walking Dead, because, I watched, everything that happened in the story, I watched it on the show before reading it in the comics. And so, woo! I don't know. But yeah, it's really interesting comparing the similarities and differences between the show and the comics. I really like the show. It's one of my favorite shows that's currently airing new episodes on television. But after reading the comics, I kind of feel like there's a lot of stuff in the show that was kind of handled a little clumsily, maybe. There are certain characters that I feel like the show just utterly ruined. Right. Take Tyrese, for example. The show just utterly ruined Tyrese. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he's still a pretty cool character in this show. I love that scene where he walks in the horde of zombies. He just starts hammering away at them, and he comes out alive, unbitten, right? Yeah, it's safe to say that he was certainly a more important character in the comics. He had a lot more presence than he did in the TV show, that's for sure. He was pretty important right up until he got beheaded, which is a death scene that went to Herschel in the TV show. And so it's a pretty big death in the comics, because he's been there a lot. He's gotten a lot of time. He and Rick were good friends. They did get into a fight at some point. Which we do see them fight in the show, but it's just not the same, because in the show they don't really come off as friends, really. They are friends in the comic. They get pretty close, but then in the show there's tension from the beginning. When Rick first meets Tyrese in the gang, he says, "Oh, get out of here," So it's just, yeah, I don't know. It's just I don't necessarily want the show to do everything the same way it's done in the comics, but it just felt like Tyrese's character was supposed to be handled in a certain way, and the show just didn't do that. It just they failed Tyrese. That's kind of what it seems like. Tyrese wasn't done justice. I'm a Tyrese fan, apparently. And then there's Andrea. Now, don't get me wrong. I've never really been a big Andrea fan. The TV show Andrea, I never really liked her all that much. The comic book version of Andrea, I did kind of start liking her at some point. Not until after Dale died and she and Rick ended up together. She became a pretty badass character, right? But yeah, never really been into Andrea, but the way that she was handled in the show, it feels like they just utterly slaughtered the character. just messed her up basically. Um, I'm fine with the idea of okay, so there's this character that's important throughout the story in the comics, and then we kill them off earlier in the show. I'm okay with them throwing those twists in there, but the way they did it with Andrea was just like wow, they just destroyed this fucking character, right? Um, like Andrea's character was destroyed even worse than Tyrese's character. I would say I don't know, they're both pretty bad, but I don't want to spend the entire video just kind of trashing on the show or anything like that. I will say that if we look at like season 3, which was one of the better seasons, I would say. I'm not gonna say it's my favorite season, but it's a pretty good one. Season 3 is one where they basically breezed through some stuff that they actually spent more time on in the comics. In the show, it was just like that part's done. We'll move on to the next thing, which is interesting because there's actually some stuff that I was expecting the comics to take some more time on. That we see in season 7. That it looks like the show actually spent more time on it than the comics did. All that stuff with like Negan and the Saviors, that moves so much faster in the comics than it did in season 7. So that was actually pretty cool. I'd say the show is really doing a better job of not burning through too much of the comic book content too fast. It's doing a better job of being truer to the comics. Again, it's not necessarily that I want it to be 100% true to the comics 100% of the time. And there could certainly be situations where they improve upon what happened in the comics. Say, oh well, maybe we'll take this approach instead of that, right? But yeah, it'd be nice if they are improvements rather than like what we see with Tyrese and Andrea, where they just totally demolish the characters and just like make it like why did you even have this character in here? Like with the way that the show handled Andrea, I kind of feel like they might as well have just killed her off in season 1 or something like that, because they kind of make it seem like, oh, she's going to be this important character, and if you are someone that read the comics, you expect her to be an important character, and then like they randomly like kill her off at the end of season 3 in just kind of a weird way. It's like, what? But I gotta say, the show is doing a good job of having certain other characters fill in for other characters. Things that happen to certain characters in the comics, they just have a different character take that part. Like I said, with Herschel getting beheaded instead of Tyrese. With the season finale in season 7, where we had Michonne, fighting with that person up in the tower, and then the person falls to her death, and Rick and the gang are thinking, oh, that was Michonne who just fell to her death, and then they go over, they see the other person's body. It's not Michonne, right? Michonne won that little battle up in the tower. Right, that's of course a scene from the comics, but of course it was Andrea that was up there in the tower, and so that was actually kind of weird for me. Like I literally just read that in the comics, seen that part in the comics, and then I watched that episode. It's just like, oh my god, I just saw this stuff happen in the comics, but yeah, then they have Michonne taking Andrea's place up there in the tower. But yeah, it's cool. When they had Negan, he's about to like start bludgeoning in Carl's fucking skull, right? And then Shiva shows up, and kind of remembering, oh yeah, they kind of did this scene in the comics. It was different, but they have this scene where all of a sudden there's Shiva coming in to save the day, right? So yeah, that was good stuff. Another character we got to talk about is Heath. Heath, of course, has disappeared from the show for the time being. Where the hell is he? We don't know, right? He's just missing. He's gone somewhere. Why didn't he go back to Alexandria? Don't really know, right? But in the comics, of course, at where the show is at, Heath would still be hanging out in Alexandria. He's actually in a relationship with Denise, who's still alive at that point in the comics. they of course, in the show opted to give her Abraham's death. She got the arrow through the eye, so that was the death that Abraham originally got in the comics. In the show, they decided just to have his skull get bludgeoned in by Negan. That was a alright way of handling Abraham. I'm fine with that. Right. But yeah, where I'm at in the comics right now, Alexandria is basically in flames. I don't know if they're going to be able to, retrieve it, or I don't know what happens after this point. But Heath has just lost his leg, and Denise has just been bitten, but she's managed to save Heath's life. Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what the show does with that, because of course Heath isn't even in Alexandria. Denise is dead, so maybe they'll have someone else's leg get blown off. Oh yeah, Eric, Aaron's boyfriend. I saw him get killed in the comics, and so I'm thinking, okay, in season 8 they might have Eric get killed if they are trying to stay true to the comics. I could see them opting to keep Eric around, though, not killing off Aaron's boyfriend. We'll see what happens with that. But yeah, just some interesting questions about what's to come. And yeah, I just wanted to kind of talk about some of the similarities and differences and some of my thoughts on that. And so yeah, that's it for this video, guys. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and share it with other people. If you're interested in watching my future videos, please subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. So I will see you all in the next one. Have a good one, guys, and peace.